apologize for interrupting the conversations. We'll go ahead and call today's Lancaster Healthy Community Commission meeting to order. It's by my clock 4 o'clock. I think, Madam Clerk, we have a couple commissioners who haven't been sworn in yet, so I believe we need to go ahead and take care of that before we can do our roll call.
Do you want to do it at the dais? Do you want to come down? I'll leave it to you two. Either way. You choose. You want to stand right there? Let's just do it here. Okay. So I'm going to go to the microphone. I know people can hear me, but I'm still going to come to the microphone. All right. So if you would raise your right hands and state your name. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter? Great, congratulations.
Isn't public service great? We'll wait for them to officially sign their lives away. Oh, Commissioner Hearns, you've done this before, so, and I think Commissioner Latanzi, you as well. All right. Okay, so if possible, we'll go ahead and take a roll and check everyone off the list.
Commissioners Fahey. Here. Hearns.
Present.
Latanzi.
Present.
Wiley.
Present.
Vice Chair Fluke.
Present.
Chairman Derryberry.
That's me.
We have a quorum.
So we don't have anyone scheduled to do the invocation today. Commissioner Wiley did it last time. Do I have any volunteers to lead us in the invocation? I was looking right at you. Commissioner Hearns, go ahead. And then if everyone can remain standing after, we'll do the pledge. So.
Lord God, we just thank you for this day, Lord, that you allowed us to see, Father. We thank you, Father, for blessing us with health and with strength and our right mind, at least I believe. And we thank you, Father God, for just the privilege to serve our local city and to serve in whatever capacities are needed, Father God. Thank you for everyone who is here today. And we just pray, Lord, that you would be in the midst of us, Lord, and cause this meeting to be productive and help us to make right decisions for the betterment of this community, Lord. And we pray this, Father, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. If you all remain standing and face the flag, put your hand over your heart and repeat with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I've looked everything over. It doesn't appear we have anything to be removed, right?
Correct.
From the agenda. Do we have any public business from the floor?
Non-agendized? Oh, it is? Non-agendized? David Paul?
We'll do the agenda for non-agendized at the end.
Yeah.
Anything on the agenda? Any
No.
speaking cards? Okay. We've all had an opportunity, I hope, to review the consent calendar items, which is just simply the approval of our meeting minutes from February from last month. We're here this day last month, so I'll entertain a motion to approve those if you guys agree.
I move that we approve the minutes from last meeting, February 6th.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Wiley, second by Commissioner Fahey. All those in favor, click the button on which one you want. We have the motion carries with one abstention from Commissioner Hearns. So last month, obviously with Commissioners Latanzi and Hearns absent, we were wanting to schedule the commission timing. I selfishly, and hopefully Michelle will back me up so I don't sound so selfish, scheduled the meeting in place of what was the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission, which Commissioner Hearns, you sat with us at one point in time as well, which was 4 o'clock the first Tuesday of every month. We've heard some ideas, maybe push it to 5 o'clock, give an opportunity for some of the community to maybe attend. It also probably worked a little better with some of our schedules for maybe a 5 o'clock meeting or later. I put it back on the agenda so we can have a quick discussion and maybe come to something more finalized so that next month we can produce our notice maybe of a different time. So what do you guys think?
I would definitely love to have it at a later time, because technically I'm not off duty until 5,
Sure.
so that would be awesome.
Same here.
And I concur with that.
So what time would work then? Does 5 o'clock work?
Yes.
So we can make a 5 o'clock meeting?
Yes.
Any other proposals? The day work okay? The first Tuesday, I know it works for the city, so,
That's fine.
Day is fine.
well, then I'll entertain a motion. Let's set the meeting time and date, first Tuesday of every month, and 5 o'clock then, if that's okay. Staff, is that okay?
Yes, it is. After you vote, we need to discuss the election coming up, because the first Tuesday of next month, we will have ballots in the chambers. And then the following Tuesday, we will be counting ballots in the chambers. So it kind of looks like maybe not having a meeting in April.
We can probably table April's meeting and come back in May. I think that would be fair.
Okay.
We would need 2 separate votes
Okay.
for that once you vote on your meeting time, and then we'll just entertain a motion for canceling the April meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
fair enough.
Can I just ask one question since we're?
Can you turn your mic?
Yeah. That one.
That one. Since we're a brand-new commission, and this is our second meeting, April would be the third meeting. I fully understand that we may not be able to meet in April, but is it possible maybe to move the meeting to the first Monday, the first Wednesday in April? Or is that sort of not workable?
Right now, the council chambers after April 3rd is because we'll have ballots for the precincts in the chambers until after the election. You would have to entertain the Monday, and that would be a special meeting, because you've already established your meeting date. So if the board voted to do that, you absolutely can, but after that, it would have to be after the week of April 16th because of the election, and the supplies are held in the chambers after the election as well.
I'm inclined to allow the election to go forward, table the April meeting. Understandably, that would be our third meeting, but given the fact that staff will be, and our clerk and her office will be very busy that week, in those weeks, I should say, with our election, I would prefer to table April's meeting, so give the city the opportunity to have a little reprieve from the election coming up. So if we can, I'll entertain 2 motions, if that's okay, to set our day and time, and then to go ahead and table the April meeting.
Okay. So I move that we move our meeting time to Tuesday at 5 o'clock, the first Tuesday of the month at 5 o'clock.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Commissioner Hearns. All those in favor? Drum roll, please. It passes. Okay. So next up, we'll have the motion to table, if you guys all agree, to table April's meeting to let the city go through the election cycle.
I make a motion to table the April meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Fluke, second by Commissioner Tanzi. All those in favor, go ahead and log in your votes. And it passes 6-0. Okay, so now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
No, absolutely. Sorry, I'm going to make you guys work an extra hour. Okay, so now obviously, we have a few new people in the audience. What we believe we're tasking ourselves with is finding a way to educate the city on I'll call it the drug epidemic that's in our streets, in our homes, in our hospital, in probably every place within our city limits. So in order to have a healthy community that will prosper, I think this is one item that hasn't really been tackled yet. We have a lot of commissions or community-based organizations that look at mental health or that look at homelessness or look at a variety of things that are other problems that the city might have. So looking at a healthy community, we set ourselves out to task to try to educate the city on the drug dependencies and the drug issues that we're facing. So last month we thought we would start from the very beginning by going to our local fire and our emergency department and the psychiatric departments at the Allen Valley Hospital. So we have guests today, so we'll take them by order of the agenda. We have two guests from Allen Valley Hospital. We have emergency department doctor, Dr. Larry Stock, and Dr. Roger Gurian, correct? So I'll invite you two gentlemen up to tell us what you see come through your doors and how it's affecting our community. So welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to split my time and give Roger Gurian half the time to talk about mental health and the interface of mental health and the drug epidemic. I'm going to spend the first part of my time just talking about the scope of the problem since we're starting general, and then talk to what we see on a daily basis in the emergency department and how we try to approach it and the challenges. We may have more questions at the end than answers, but we're going to try. I pulled on some sources to put ourselves in perspective with the rest of LA County and so the LA County key indicators from the Public Health Department. I drew sources from the NIH, from the National Institute of Drug Abuse, and also from the National Drug Early Warning System. And it's pretty clear that we have a major problem up here. One key statistic from the county is that the rate of unintentional drug-related death rate is the highest in our service plan area than any other. So we're at 12 per 100,000, and the average in the United States is 11.9, but we're at 12.2, and LA County is 7.2. So we're considerably higher than the rest of the county.
Can you repeat that statistic,
Absolutely.
please?
So yeah, so the rate of unintentional drug-related death rate per 100,000 population is 12.2. And the area is called the service planning area number 1, which is from the Public Health Department's viewpoint, that's all of the Antelope Valley.
And when you say unintentional, meaning car accidents, overdose, or?
Unintentional drug, so if someone drank too much alcohol,
Right.
if they overdosed on pills but didn't expect to die, they took too much methamphetamine and they died.
Sure.
So if that was the main, it could be a car accident if they were drunk driving, yes, it could be any of those things.
Okay.
If it was the main culprit behind in the mechanism. So that's one key thing to put. So we have a big problem up here, and there's different ways of looking at this because what drugs are manufactured and available up here, what's used, what gets people to come to the hospital, and what results in death, and other non-lethal consequences are all ways of looking at the problem. But if you just start at the big one, which is death, we're higher than the rest of the county. The second big thing is to keep a perspective because I don't know how much we're aware on the commission, but heroin and other opiates, including prescription drugs, is a big problem throughout the country. We've heard a lot about it. Some of this is considered a self-inflicted wound because about 20 years ago, pain experts told the doctors throughout the country, and this was backed up by the government and the Joint Commission, that we weren't treating pain adequately. And we were told under pretty severe penalties if we didn't follow how to address pain, how to measure pain, how to treat pain and reassess pain. And so we all dutifully did what we were told by our experts, knowing full well this might get some people in trouble. And we were told that's okay as long as everyone gets treated well. It's resulted in the opiate epidemic throughout the country. specific areas of the country are hit harder than others. And if you go to the Northeast, there's high death rates from overdoses. If you go to Ventura County or go to Monterey Peninsula, same thing. Up here, it's a little different, and the rest of LA County as well. We're particularly hard hit, but throughout LA County, methamphetamine is the drug, not opiates. We do have an opiate problem, and the opiates are more lethal than the methamphetamine. But just like in war, if someone gets killed, they die. It's the wounded that we take care of and take up large number of resources, both for the people taking care of them and for society and for themselves. And so we're seeing a high volume of methamphetamine user, and it's on the rise. So opiates are the most lethal. Methamphetamine is becoming the most serious hard drug that we see up here by a long shot. And throughout the deserts in California, there's a high manufacturing rate. We get a lot of it comes in from Sinaloa area of Mexico, but San Bernardino County, Riverside County, up here and up in the Bay Area, people are manufacturing both in big labs and small micro labs. It's pretty easy to make, and the big desert area makes it easy to go undetected. It's cheap. You can get high for about $5. So it's readily available, it's cheap, and it's unfortunately it's in high use. And that's what we see at the hospital a lot more than opiate overdose. The most commonly used drugs are the ones that we're most familiar with, alcohol and marijuana. And all the other drugs are sort of ranked much lower. But so most commonly used, alcohol and marijuana, most lethal opiates, and most worrisome in terms of costs to our city is methamphetamine. What we see, and we can go into what methamphetamine, and Roger may talk about this a little more, but what I see every day when I come to work are patients that are brought in by law enforcement, sometimes by the fire department, who are acting psychotic. And psychosis is the way people behave who have severe mental health problems when they're off their medications and they're hallucinating. They see things that other people don't see or hear things other people don't hear. And this is more commonly referred to as people acting crazy, dangerous, they may be violent, they certainly are responding to internal stimuli, but they may not have a mental health problem at all. They may just be taking methamphetamine or other drugs that are similar. We have less of a big problem with bath salts, with synthetic cannabinoids or synthetic marijuana, which is a super duper high concentration of marijuana. And there's a few other drugs out there, but it's methamphetamine far and away is the most common thing. We see this every single day. And these people come in, often they need to be given medications to treat the psychoses and agitation. It takes several hours for them to sleep. And when they wake up, we often can interview them and see whether they truly do have a mental health problem or it was just the drugs alone. So this is, again, many of our beds are filled up with these people. They take a lot of resources, and it's a very hard thing to kick. It's a very addictive thing. The methamphetamine ruins many organs in the body, including the brain. And so long-term use will result in people having heart problems, kidney problems, strokes, and there's no easy treatment. We certainly can treat the acute illness, but getting people to actually get follow-up and quit is very, very difficult. There are some promising things on the horizon, and those things are for alcohol. There are some treatments that are out there, and we could talk more about that later. There are even treatments now beginning for opiates that are newer. So you may have heard of methadone in the past, methadone clinics, but for people who want to quit, there's some new medications out there. One's called Suboxone that people are using to get people who are ready to quit. But getting ready to quit is not a common thing. But if they are, there are things. There's not a lot out there for methamphetamine getting people to quit because there's no specific drug out there. I'm going to give Roger the rest of my time, and then we can both answer questions if commissioners have any.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stock.
Roger.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners and chairman. I work the emergency room. I'm an executive director of the mental health department at the hospital. About a tenth of our patients are methamphetamine abusers. In the WIP, Women and Infant Pavilion, which is a frightening statistic, that about 10% of the young mothers or the mothers that go there are abusing methamphetamine, which means that the baby is exposed to methamphetamine at a very early age. Another real risk there is that these women don't attend to prenatal care, so that further puts the baby and the fetus at risk. Dr. Stock mentioned about the mental status changes of methamphetamine users, and he mentioned the high rate of usage of hospital staff when someone comes in using methamphetamine. They are oftentimes psychotic. They can't tell real from unreal. Their sense of time is distorted. They can have tachycardia. If you ask a person on methamphetamine, can you tell me when 30 seconds is up? Now, they just cannot tell you time, or sometimes spatial relationships are distorted. And when they don't eat for a long time because methamphetamine kills your appetite, it leads to other physiological damage, rhabdomyolysis, which means that your body is basically kind of eating your muscles, and it shows up in the bloodstream. They're hyperverbal when they talk, even faster than Dr. Stock presented. But one of the worst things is the potentially violent behavior. They can go from looking placid to all of a sudden, for no reason, attack somebody or themselves. I witnessed a patient who was laying in a gurney after he had a seizure, but he was on meth, and he was fumbling in his pockets, and he pulls out a box cutter. I yelled knife, and he slit his throat, cut his platysmus, this broad muscle here. And fortunately, there was an ER doc, Dr. Uner, was right there, and staved off the blood flow. But they have no appreciation of the value of life. None. Their life or someone else's. And so it puts our emergency room and our mental health staff at risk. And if you can see the numbers, that if a steady flow of about a third of our patients in WIPs, even in the women and infant pavilion, are on meth, or they abuse meth. So you have the short-term dangers of that drug where they're acutely psychotic, then the longer term where their bodies are eroding. They lose their teeth. There's the old joke about the tattoo to teeth ratio that you see it's very common with people who abuse methamphetamine, that their nutrition suffers. When they're in the emergency room, they're so irritable they present a great risk to the staff. When they're on the mental health unit, they can destroy the efficacy of the unit. They're so irritable they won't participate, and they take up a large percentage of the staff's time just redirecting their behavior all the time. Sometimes, well, oftentimes, they end up in restraints. And it's not uncommon for staff to be harmed when they get that aggressive. But that's in our hospital. That's what we see in our hospital. What we also see in the streets is in the homeless, a great percentage of the homeless are drug abusers, and they will go and for $15 worth of copper from an air conditioning that they take the cowling off, and they take the copper tubing out. They'll sell that copper tubing for $15. They've destroyed a $1,000 air conditioning unit. That's one of their frequent tactics. They will strip wiring for the copper wiring and spend hours with a knife stripping. They're so motivated to get high that euphoria is that's all they think about. They will destroy their family. Many families that I've talked to, the families have they're so frustrated they give up. There's nothing else they can do. They've practically mortgaged their home to get their son out or daughter out of jail, bailed them out so many times, and then the kid steals from them. And this is very, very common. It costs us. The cost is amazing. Now, one thing I want to point out is that maybe 1 in 100 meth users will want to stop using meth. And we don't have a drug that will stave off the craving, like we have some of the newer ones for alcohol or for the opiates. We don't have that in sight for methamphetamine. It's a real problem, and it affects a lot of people. What I'm saying is, I don't believe meth users will stop on their own. When they are arrested, they'll be either incarcerated for a year and they're drug free for a year. Then oft times they get right out and they want to use again. It's a serious problem. What I'm thinking is that if we could create some programs where they are forced into not using, either a rehab program where they can earn their rehab through work, something like that. And other states are trying these things now, but something for us to explore in the future, in the near future. And I hope I've created an accurate picture for you here. I hope it's useful. And anything I can do to help you in the future, let me know.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
In relation to the copper tubing, how is that used to?
They recycle it. They go to a recycle place.
You can
so
sell
they
it.
just, they
It's got
just
cash
use it
value.
to
Sell it.
sell
Right.
for,
And-
okay,
and-
to purchase,
yeah.
whatever. Okay.
And nobody at the recycling place asks, well, where did you get this air conditioning tubing?
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I have a question as well, and thank you for a very, very lovely presentation, both gentlemen doctors. So my question would be, looking at your sense of the drug use today as compared to a year ago, is your sense that it's staying about the same in the Antelope Valley, more, less, or I'm just sort of trying to get a feel for, do we seem to be at a steady state in your opinion from what you've seen, or?
It is at least at a steady state, possible increase.
Which is worrisome enough in and
Would
of
you say
itself.
I'd say my impression and the data seems that it's on an uptrend,
Okay.
at least. I think cocaine is going down. I think alcohol is going down a bit, and
Meth is cheaper.
Meth is cheaper. It's our thing.
And then I had heard some reference to some programs in other states. Do you have familiarity with what other districts are trying or are doing, or any funded grant funding that may be going on?
I saw a television show recently, and it was on the news, actually. And there is a county, I believe in Ohio, where if someone is arrested, they have to pay off their hospital bill in the court time with a combination of work plus rehab. They have to go to rehab. And there's no data on this efficacy of that program yet.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question. What is the age? I guess, and I'm looking at maybe from the perspective of if we do education, or if we want to educate people, but is the where we send it, is it teenagers, or is it just a wide spectrum there as far as age where we could put educational material out there to educate up?
I think the peak appears to be 20 to 45 in that range. I don't know why, but after that time, some things just stop after a certain age. People get tired of it and they burn out on it. I don't know that, but.
Yeah, we were just talking about that sometimes after 45, even 50, they say, I'm getting too old for this. But, yeah.
I know the heroin abusers can't see their veins anymore, so they stop.
Get it quit.
One thing I would like to, and this is completely just a thought after doing this for 25 years, is that we were talking with the technology we have now is it would be an interesting teaching tool to take an iPad that's not connected to the internet and take a short video of people when they're in the throes of their psychoses, and when they're sober, show themselves to themselves, if they are willing to see it, as a teaching tool, and to see what they think about it, and show it. And if they want to show it to their family, let them see what their loved one did.
Yeah.
And to see whether or not if that would help someone to realize that they may want to make other choices.
Because I'm thinking is what I've heard about is that it's paint thinner and stuff like this. I'm thinking that's just dangerous by itself. So why would I want to use something like that, but I mean, it's different. So I'm looking at the educational level. How do we educate? How do we put it out there so the deterrent, I guess, to not go there? But
It's interesting that amphetamines got started, way back in, it's been around for a long time, but in the 50s, it was like Benzedrine.
Yes.
And they used to have it as an inhaler. You could get an inhaler
Right.
at the drugstore without a prescription. And people used as diet pills during the 60s, right?
Right.
Dexedrine. And more recently, since the 80s or so, it's been a drug that people used who were working because it let them do 2 or 3 jobs without getting tired. So they do it for energy, so they could keep working. And they started, if you took a little more of it, it helped you maybe in your personal life. It seemed like it was working, and then it seemed like you had boundless energy, and you start feeling a bit euphoric. And before you knew it, people who are high on it don't know that they're disorganized and psychotic. They feel really good. So that's,
So I have a question. Dr. Stock said it that, when they come in, they might seem like they have a mental health disorder and they could possibly just, be under the influence of one of these drugs. So when they go into, I'm assuming like a 72-hour hold in the behavioral health unit, how long, at what point do you give the diagnosis that then medication comes to follow that? And
we can diagnose that pretty readily. For one thing, if somebody comes in with methamphetamine, they have tachycardia, which is not normally seen in a schizophrenia. The psychotic symptoms mimic schizophrenia. And in fact, chronic methamphetamine use, it can induce a permanent psychosis in someone or permanent schizophrenic-like symptoms. And that's really sad to see, and we see that. But you look at I mentioned the rhabdomyolysis, the eating away of the muscles, and what we call ketonuria. That's where you're immediately spilling ketones into the blood. That's not seen in schizophrenia. But just eyeballing somebody, if they're hyperthermic and they're hyperverbal, and they have tachycardia, and one of the main signs is they have a hypertensive crisis. Their blood pressure just shoots through the roof.
and I'll have a couple of clarifications. One is the overlap between people who do have, let's say, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or severe depression, and drug use like meth is quite large. So we have to wait for them to metabolize their drugs. We check the urine tox screen. We observe them in the emergency department. And when they're done, and we look back at their histories, back in the medical record, talk to their families. So sometimes they have both problems.
Right.
Sometimes it's just the drugs. And people who come in on a 5150, it's an application for a 72-hour hold. It's not itself a hold. So there's a period of time where people come in. They don't go straight up to the mental health unit generally. They come in for a period of time in the emergency department, and that can be for several hours to several days if we're waiting to transfer them. But at some point along the way, when they're ready to, they've had both a medical evaluation and a mental health evaluation, and that's we clarify those things. But the metabolism takes some time.
It's also interesting to note, by the way, in terms of cost to society, to our county, to our city, that the average emergency room bed can see about 4.18 patients per 24-hour period. A mental health patient that comes in on meth will tie up that bed, and those beds could be better used to treat somebody with a more acute emergency problem. And sometimes they have to sit in the waiting room for 24 hours. Not that long, usually, but sometimes it does occur. People have to wait.
And sometimes when people come with these symptoms, we have to make sure they don't have other problems like an infectious disease like meningitis, or something else, which is some other brain disorder, having a stroke. So sometimes the work can be very small or can be very big, depending on what history we have and how the person presents. So it's not all clear cut at the beginning. So.
One other quick question. Of the population of people who come in with these issues, how many of them have you seen repeatedly, do you think?
That's a big problem. We have repeat customers, people who have used meth, and we've referred them to the Tarzana Treatment Center or one of the rehab centers, and they don't go, and then they come right back again. And there's a tremendous correlation between the homelessness and drug abuse, too.
Yeah, most of them have come back, it's their second visit. Occasionally we have someone on their first visit. We don't have much information on that, but we always check, and we do get a lot of repeat offenders. That's for sure.
And I guess my question to follow with that, I was going to ask that same thing, but a worst case scenario, if we're kind of escalating up on the upward side, then the hospital, we'd be ready. I don't know if we could even handle the population that comes in if they're so chaotic and disruptive. Your normal people who come in to get help couldn't be helped, and because they're taking up a lot of your time.
Hospital security staff.
Yeah, we're actually very good at this because we do it all the time.
Okay.
So, everybody does well at the things they do every day, and this is our every day.
Well, I was looking at the escalation part that goes over, which the normal becomes the abnormal, and then now it kind of explodes. So I just...
we get a lot of help from law enforcement, from fire, and so sometimes, depending on the scenario, we have to gauge, the level of violence that the person is, and it's like if you're a sailor, you learn to read the wind. This is a bit like that. You have to sort of sense where you're at, and sense what the response has to be. So it's a good question, and they're not all a 10. Some of them are a 3.
Right. Thank you.
I do have a question. With so much attention being spent on the opioid crisis right now, and I know it's a big deal, and it's even a big deal here, even though methamphetamine rise above it, but are you seeing resources shift that maybe you guys need to stay focused where it is? Because our problem has been methamphetamine as long as I've been here. I've worked pretty significantly in this particular community, so I know it's been a problem. The 20 years I've been here, methamphetamine has been the biggest issue. So are you guys seeing maybe a little shift that we need to try to shift back?
We have a pretty good program at the hospital to combat prescription opiate overuse or misuse. I can go into that more if you have time. But not only us by ourselves, although we helped pioneer start this, but we got together on a community-wide basis with AV Community Clinic, with Kaiser Permanente, Hydros and Metal Group, Palmdale, and put together some community guidelines on prescribing and how to handle people with chronic pain, people who already have someone prescribing, using the CURE system, which is a statewide database of the Department of Justice, making sure we use that appropriately to be able to check where people got their prescriptions, talk to them about that. So that doesn't take, it's how we do things doesn't really take a lot of money to do that. It just takes coordination, and so people don't. So where people get into this prescription drug thing is they work in the cracks in the system. When you have fragmented information, people take advantage of that. If they can't go here, they go to another place. And so when people are all in the same database, we tend to coordinate well as a region. This is trickier. This is not a prescription medicine, and it's widely available, and it's a tough one. Yes, we need to focus greatly on this, and I'm glad the Commission's taking this up as a challenge in general.
Well, that kind of can piggyback off this a little bit, but what about the benzoids that are also, because...
Benzodiazepines?
Yeah, like the Xanaxes and things like that, that are, can that same process kind of be implemented? Because just, working in this field, we see things also, and I think that those addicts coming in and then getting the antidepressants and things like that also add to that addiction going on, that they can then go to every urgent care or whatever, that it's the same kind of thing as the pain relief.
So our safe, we call them safe prescribing guidelines. It's not just for opiates. So it takes on the benzodiazepines as well. We actually have a number of things, probably not well known by most people, but to the people who frequently use these medicines, first of all, those medicines are often prescribed together by people with chronic pain and spasm. So yes, we have a community-wide set of guidelines for benzodiazepines, which is like your Xanax, Valium, and those sort of medicines, as well as opiates, which are like Norco and other types of hydrocodone and Percocets. But we also include things like Phenergan with codeine, which people would come and say, I have a cough, can you give me some cough medicine, doc? And there's all these, Benadryl, IV Benadryl is a big thing. It potentiates that of opiates. So we've set up a set of guidelines to discourage people to come in for a fix, where, and to get together with one doctor who's managing their chronic pain, and opiates are not always the right answer, for pain. So.
Yeah, one of the dangers with abrupt cessation of benzodiazepines is it can potentiate a seizure. It could be lethal. I have seen a tremendous shift in this community where most GPs will really limit, I think benzodiazepines were originally designed for short-term use, particularly after we've learned that they can be habituating and even addicting. So most physicians now are very respectful about that, and they only give short-term use for anxiolytic or getting rid of anxiety.
I'll tell a very quick story, but John Lynn, who was our director for over 40 years in the emergency department, in fact, the emergency department's named for Dr. Lynn,
Yeah.
who just passed away a couple of years ago. He frequently tell me the story, because we in the emergency department, we've never given out big prescriptions, like it used to happen in pain offices. We give small prescriptions, and now they're even smaller. But he used to tell people who'd come in and say, "Doc, I really need this," and he'd say, "I can't do it," and they'd say, "Why not?" He says, "Because they won't let us." And he said for 40 years, only one person asked him, "Well, who are they?"
Who's they?
And he said, "You know who they are." And that was it. That was it.
That's good.
And now there really is a they, because it's the Department of Justice and the cure system. And but it was a great story, and he, and it worked most of the time. So, anyways.
So here's the $1 million question. What do we do? I mean, what can we do? We've talked a lot about education, I know, and I think you two gentlemen know, me personally in this commission, how bad you guys are bogged down with the methamphetamine problems and the other drug dependency problems that come through. I've seen it in the ED personally. We know how problematic it is. What can we do as a community? What can we do as a commission to help garnish this healthy living for this city and try to pull away, maybe it's one or two patients, your frequent flyers, what can we do to educate them? I know that's $1 million question. Maybe you should think about it and come back in another day. I don't know. But, if you got something for us, we're going to entertain it, because that's what we're here to do, to try to solve it.
I think teenagers need to just be told, hey, do you want to give up the next 40 years of your life by starting? Because once you start that drug, you can't stop it. I've seen very, very few people, as I said, 1 out of 100 maybe, who say, you know what, I think I'll stop doing this. They can't. Despite how hard they may try, they can't. So they need just to hear, do you want to give up the next 40 years of your life or even your life? Because that's what's going to happen. And the quality of your life.
I think that's a good point. I think education, starting with people when they're not involved is great. And, it's like South Park, Mr. Garrison, drugs are bad, and he said it all right there, right? And of course, we know that in most parts of life, moderation, alcohol and now marijuana are legal drugs, and prohibition didn't work when it came to alcohol. We're going to have all sorts of issues with marijuana coming up now that it is legal in California. But for people to learn to do risky things in moderation, they're going to have to learn that, but having some education early on is good. I think it's going to be a multimodal answer, Mr. Chairman, is that people that are addicted are probably going to be a different solution than people that are just hearing about it for the first time. And then the aspect of law enforcement, what role does law enforcement play, is going to be important, whether it's law enforcement or court-ordered treatment, quarantine, or what. So there's all sorts of questions out there about what role that plays, because it's illegal. We're talking about,
I would love to have some substantive discussions with law enforcement. They're already overwhelmed. They couldn't possibly.
As are you, too.
Yes, well, in fact, it's going the other way. We've very clearly, the fire department can tell you that law enforcement is thrilled to bring these patients to us and get them off their hands, and make it a medical problem.
But that's only part of it. They won't stop on their own. That's what I'm trying to say. So we need to, for my recommendation, we have to find a way to make them stop, because they cost us all. Besides their life, they cost us quality of life and safety in our communities.
Sure.
So,
That was going to be my question. Is there a connection between crime and their use? And if so, then you can definitely
yes.
pursue it in the
Absolutely.
courts.
There's a huge,
That'll be a perfect segue maybe for our next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
well, thank you for
Thank
hearing
you all.
us. Yeah.
Gentlemen,
Thanks
thank
for inviting us.
Greatly appreciate it. I know you guys are both very busy. Every time I hear a presentation like that, it's like it gets socked in the gut a little bit, you know. But you know, we've got our work ahead of us. So we've got another guest, Sean Grizzard from the LA County Fire Department is here as well. You know, if you remember my comments from last meeting, I thought getting it both from what the paramedics are seeing on the street and from our good doctors here, it gives us a better idea on what's really out there in our community. So welcome.
Thank you.
Sean, thank you for coming.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and commissioners, thank you for having me. I want to apologize for Dr. Kazan. He is our medical director, and he wanted to be here today to present this to you, but there was a conflict in his schedule, so you're stuck with me. My role with the fire department is I am the Lancaster Fire Prevention Captain for the North County up here, and I represent the fire marshal. So my role is more of a code enforcement. I work with Elizabeth quite a bit and that type of thing, but I've spent 30 years with the fire department riding on all the fire engines up here. So I have a lot of experience with the 911 system and going to the hospital. And I wanted to tell you that some of the things the doctor said just really hit home with me. And one is the fire station about a quarter mile to the east of here, 33s, is the busiest fire station in Los Angeles County. Number one, every year for as long as I can remember. And it continues to get busier and busier. Our 911 calls are over 90%, I would say probably 95% medical. And when you say medical, that encompasses drugs, illegal drugs, legal drugs, and any type of medical call. Could be a traffic collision or a heart attack. So our role also is, and I've got statistics here for you guys that I'm going to tell you about, but in these statistics, it'll show different amounts of drug-related calls. But what you have to remember is when we go on these calls, we're not doctors like these two gentlemen. Our job is to evaluate the patient, get a baseline, check that patient out, document our findings, and transport to the emergency room as quickly as possible. Some treatments are predetermined that we will do based on our findings, but we are not diagnosing these patients. So my point is some of these statistics I'm going to give you are skewed, because they're our best guess. And yes, we have frequent flyers, we'll call them, or return patients. And yes, we know this person is a meth user and we've seen him over and over, and yeah, it'll check the box, possible drug overdose or whatnot. So another thing, and I'm going to go forward a little before I go back, and that is when you asked about how to solve this problem. That struck home, and what the doctors had said. I looked down at the statistics here. For adolescents ages 13 to 17, our drug-related calls are extremely low. So obviously that's our target audience. I really think if we can go after them in the high schools, junior highs, that might be our best approach, in my personal opinion. I'm seeing 17 calls and 451 for adults. So it's a huge difference. And like the doctor said, cocaine is extremely low. A lot of the drugs with 0 to 12-year-old children, adolescents, extremely low. It seems to be an adult problem. Cannabis is on the climb. Acid, LSD, heroin, I'd say is probably in the 25% range, but methamphetamines is obviously right up there in some of the top ones. and I've seen it, over and over. We also have statistics here, cardiac related. Now, that's a good one to look at because we have 5% driven from drugs. Well, I believe it's much higher because we cannot diagnose in the field. We're guessing almost till it gets to the hospital. They have the patient for a few days. They're able to medicate them, bring them down, do some testing, and then the real diagnosis is done. But I'd be willing to bet that the cardiac-related ones are probably higher. What do you think?
No, I think so. I think cardiac and also kidney failure from this rhabdomyolysis. So yeah, we see strokes, and all these could be, there's a certain element of those are drug-related.
Okay. Another 6% traffic-related stuff. You had mentioned that, and absolutely, it's not just alcohol, but it's illegal drugs. We have pedestrians involved that were obviously the driver was influenced and the pedestrian wasn't, but we include it in our statistics. So when you see these statistics, they're not really, the better statistics come from these two gentlemen. Ours are more what we see immediately, we transport. All right? Any questions?
How often do you perceive there to be a drug-related issue in the field that you don't transport? That it requires a call, you get there, and then you don't ship.
That happens. Typically, it's against medical advice. We will have them. We'll make contact with the hospital. We'll let them know what the situation is, and we'll advise the patient that's against medical advice not to go to the hospital. We try to transport all of our patients, which impacts the ED department tremendously. I mean, obviously, being the one busiest fire station in all of LA County is right here. Well, we've got 7 of them in the Lancaster area, and all of those are impacted heavily. And then we always encourage the patient almost exclusively to go to the emergency department. And that's because, once again, we're not doctors. For us to make a medical evaluation and not recommend going to the hospital is not wise on our part. So that's kind of how it works. And we're establishing a baseline, like I said. That's what basically our job is to give these gentlemen something to work with. And
so out of your 7 stations in the city of Lancaster, obviously, so my office is on Date here in Lancaster Boulevard, so I see 33s fly by my window probably 10 to 20 times a day, going in various different directions, and they're always very respectful of me. I've talked to a bunch of your guys. They're over the years become good friends of mine. But out of which stations do you feel that the calls are more prevalent, drug-related calls?
Right here. 33s.
33s.
Absolutely. In the west side, less. It's more medical-related stuff. Fires are very, very small. We do fires every day in LA County, but typically it's a very small part of our job.
Sure.
Drug stuff, obviously it's the homeless. They're in this area as well. 134s, they're on 25th and K8. It's a pretty busy area as well. I think that's maybe an older population and maybe more true medical calls. As we get out further to 84's Quartz Hill area and Rancho Vista area, it's less. They get quieter. The stations get less calls. So it's mostly in this area, 117, so it's the east side of Lancaster, trailer parks, quite a bit there too. So that's most of our run volume in that direction.
Question for I guess both. We got statistics on the known. Would you care to guesstimate on the unknown who don't really go in? I mean, you could get a call out and there's 2 of us. I'm the only one that goes in, but he's still a user also that doesn't go in. So would you say maybe the percentage is even higher there that we don't know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, every day you have drug use going on in the Antelope Valley area that we don't even have any statistics for. One of my inspectors today told me he drove by a homeless encampment and the cloud came into his vehicle. And he goes, I don't understand how they don't try to find a place to live, but yet they're able to buy these illegal drugs. And they may be legal drugs, I don't know, but yes, you're absolutely right. It's when somebody reaches a point where their respiration levels get so low that somebody calls 911. They'll wait till the very end. They don't call us for the recreational part of it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have a question? No?
I was just going to ask, do you know the impact from the unincorporated areas into, or is that not really?
Like, because we have, part of the city of Lancaster encompasses what would be considered Lake LA, you know, and then you have.
Little Rock.
You know, Little Rock, but those.
The out.
Little Rock, and we also have Leona Valley, Quartz Hill. There's the way it works with the fire department is, we'll take Station 84, for example. It's in Quartz Hill. It's on L12.
Sure.
You guys familiar with that one in 50th? It covers a lot of the unincorporated part of LA County. However, if Station 33 is on a medical call, they have both a ladder truck and an engine, and both will go on medical calls, and both are paramedic units. If they're both busy, the next up call will be that engine from the unincorporated area will be brought into Lancaster to assist. And then if there's another medical call, we'll bring another fire engine, maybe from Palmdale. So we all back each other up, we all assist, and we take one call at a time. So it does impact the unincorporated areas in that respect.
And do you get a lot of calls for what you would think are drug-related or in the unincorporated areas?
Not as much as downtown Lancaster. That is, by and large, our largest drug-related type calls. And doctor, help me here. What would you call that? Not schizophrenic, but the manic behavior.
I call it methaphrenia.
I knew you had a word.
It looks like schizophrenia, but it's not.
Yeah, and there again, I can't diagnose because I'm not a doctor. But we'll get people with psychosis type issues, and that really can be from somebody who's a diabetic, when you think they're on some type of drug and they're really not. They're having a diabetic episode. So we have to be real careful on what we put in our documentation and how we handle. Like I said, we're setting a baseline for these gentlemen to work with, and that's our basic emergency medical program. Okay. Anything else? All right, guys, I really applaud you for taking on this task. It's a very difficult one, but it very, very much needs to be addressed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, some of the things obviously that stuck out to me, you know, his statistics on the incredible amount of low calls for the teenage year potential patients for Mr. Grizzard in the fire department. You know, and then comments made by our doctors. I don't know. To me, that's calling at the education standpoint. I mean, I could share stories from my childhood, which, you know, I think led me down the path to avoid those things. And it was those years that did it. And it was not anything I learned in school. It was not. These are real life problems that I faced in my life that helped me stay away from it. So, you know, I don't know, you know, how do we put forth some education? I mean, I don't know. That's what's bringing out to me the maybe an avenue to try to get this across. You know, I think about what the City of Lancaster did for, you know, the Ready Lancaster program, which was for disaster preparedness. You know, but maybe we lead ourselves down a path of pointing an education program at, you know, 12 to 16-year-olds or 13 to 17-year-olds or something that, you know, I'm sure the school district would be very, very happy for us to assist with. I don't know, but I don't know. You guys comment. What do you think?
I definitely see a multi-pronged approach. There's no one entity that's going to do it.
Correct.
It's going to take the entire community coming together to help address maybe different facets of the issue. And coming from a law enforcement perspective, you know, a lot of times we get those reluctant clients who don't want to participate, but when there is an issue and they're before the judge, then they have to comply, or it's jail time or prison time. So that's one aspect, but I mean, for sure, it's going to require everybody working together. And yes, prevention is key, but I think even those who are currently users, they need our help as well. So,
Chairman Derryberry?
Yes.
Do you want, if you're thinking about the 12 to 16, do we want to have some superintendents from the school system to come to see what they see and to find out what programs they have and do not have and get their take on it? And then maybe later on, we can see what they're doing with the adults, whatever organizations are out there.
If I didn't know better, I would say you were reading my mind, because besides potentially my idea, besides potentially bringing the sheriff's department in as well, was to get the superintendents or whoever underneath the superintendents at the school district. I think we're going to have a crossover from junior high to high school. So I think, obviously we have, the Lancaster School District, the West Side School District, East Side School District, and the Union High School District that's within our city here. I think we should try to hear from all of them. What are they seeing at, because they all touch a different part of our city. East, west, north, south, they affect, every portion of it. So, I think that would be a good step forward. While we're considering the schools and that sort of thing, we can kind of maybe expand upon some of the comments Angela made about, not only the children, but those that are already affected as well, and consider, who do we bring in to help them as well.
What I was liking what the doctors had said earlier about maybe the videotaping of one of the individuals. I kind of like that. If they would kind of give the consent, because I think sometimes things are better caught than taught. You see yourself, you got to reflect. And then I reflect on myself when I was a young man. Back in 6th grade, they showed me the thing about smoking. They actually did the surgery, and I passed out, never smoked a cigarette. So, maybe if you catch a few, we catch a few. But then maybe even having a user come in that would be somewhat clean to say what are his issues, because we're looking from a sterile side, not from their side, and perhaps get some ideas on how we can grow this thing and educate ourselves, as well as educating the individuals that may be potential users or causing harm to themselves and others out there.
Please go ahead.
Commissioner, I think that's a great idea. I was going to say the population that comes up here because they're incarcerated, whether they're in jail or they're in prison and then gets released in our community, is both an opportunity and a threat. And so they may become part of the user population once they get out and be part of the culture that is either, growing, distributing, selling, and using. Or they also, some of these people who are highly motivated may end up being great teachers to immunize our students against, young people against, becoming part of that issue in the future. So I think great point.
I'm just wondering what the health classes are, something can be incorporated in the health classes in school. So I'd be curious to find out, have that as a question to the superintendents when they come. Is there an opportunity in classes that are already being held to do some of this education? I haven't been in school for a long time, but I think they still have health classes.
I agree, and also it might be helpful maybe to reach out with families whose family members suffer with this problem, because the families may have some ideas and resources from their own personal experiences that might help guide the commission.
Good idea.
Dr. Stock, do you have an organization that treats families that I could reach out to have them come and talk to us about it?
I don't. I do believe that though there are organizations like for families of alcoholics and families of right. I don't know.
Yes, there
It's
are.
Al-Anon.
Al-Anon, families of alcoholics and families of drug users. So I don't know the name, but I know they do exist, and I know they probably have speakers bureaus who can come up
And you could also talk to Dr. Ann Gassaway, who works with me at Antelope Valley Mental Health.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tarzana Treatment Center probably be a good resource also for speakers. I imagine they're tied into motivational speakers,
Okay.
people with knowledge about this, because they're probably one of the more organized resources for up here.
Okay.
Antelope Valley High School District has continuation schools,
Right.
and the teachers there are hands-on. They may be a resource for you guys to get some.
There was another statistic that kind of stood out to me in this thing, and that's that 10% or more of the mothers coming through the WIP have addiction issues, and the ramifications for that long term are absolutely huge, not just for the child and what it means for the DCFS services that have to get involved, the law enforcement services that have to get involved, but this is a huge to me. That was like the glaring thing that really stood out to me, aside from the educational issues, is that, you know, it's hard to catch because a lot of these women don't get prenatal care, but it's a frightening statistic to me, and, you know, I don't know what can be done, but I think that we have to try to find something.
Yeah. The Children's Center of the Antelope Valley is a good resource. They work with at-risk families. You know, there are, this is a huge problem for protecting unborn children. Trying to get the people on a healthy course during pregnancy. And if you look at the LA County Health Indicator Report from the Public Health Department, you'll see we are challenged in that department as well, prenatal care and all the other data regarding early having safe pregnancies and family planning. So.
Well, I sure thank you guys for coming. As somebody who grew up in a household that was pretty rampant with different addiction issues, it's difficult to avoid. It hasn't necessarily been for me. I think I was just born not prone to be addicted, but I've seen the impacts that it's had on some of my siblings, and I really appreciate you guys coming forward with information that, you know, gives us a rounded view of what's going on, and I absolutely can't wait to hear from law enforcement on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys, everything you do for the community. You know, it's not a one-day task for you. It's an everyday task.
Thank you for doing what you're doing right now.
It's incredible what you guys do. You know, I see what 33 does at their station. Dr. Stock, obviously, I've lived your ER for many years vicariously through my lovely wife and all the years she spent in that department. So, but you three, you know, you do what we're trying to do every day. So I thank you for that. So if you guys are open to it, you know, we might keep a short line on you three in your various departments for assistance and guidance as we're trying to maybe implement new programs and that sort of thing. So, but again, thank you so much, greatly.
Thank you.
Dr. Kazan is also a resource for you guys. He works with Dr. Stock, and he is our medical director. So
Perfect.
He's another one we'll reach out to. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for your time.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
So I think moving on, you know, just general discussion. I think, you know, let's go ahead and proceed with trying to get the school districts in May. I think that'll be good. It'll buy us some time. They'll start to wind up their school years or here over the next few months. So hopefully we should be able to get some participation from all of them to hear what they're doing in their schools already. And then maybe if it's not too much, maybe we'll go ahead and work on getting the sheriff's department as well. If not, we can always push the sheriff's department to June and give them their own time as well. So we'll play that by ear before we set the agenda for next time, if that's fair.
May I ask that we contact even someone from the court, from the adult courts?
Yeah, I think that with all the propositions that were passed by the citizens, law enforcement is overwhelmed and the people are getting out as fast as they're booked.
Right.
So it would be much better, I think, to go towards the court who's releasing them as fast as they're coming in.
Sure.
Because law enforcement is doing and has been doing all that they can do. I think it comes to a point where we need to look at what the court system can do in terms of getting these people into treatment as maybe a mandate.
That's right.
So
Because they
I can
can.
work on that too.
Yes.
But you can help me, right?
Sure.
Okay.
You're nominated.
Hi.
Okay.
I just need phone number and people to talk to, and
Okay.
that would help a lot.
Okay, sure.
Well, Dr. Vieira just got the Navigating
I know,
Change
I'm gonna
Award
talk to him.
at the Board of Trade, so we've got to push on him
Yeah,
at the
we do.
school district. Okay, so I think I see we've had some speaker cards, so we can go ahead and go to our public business from the floor on the non-agendized items. So if
Okay.
you can introduce the people, please.
David Paul?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you. What a tough problem. I've been trying to crack this nut for 40 years. I started with developmentally disabled people, and behavior modification therapy helps them learn. But we're also in a condition now where what I called the WUD, World Unraveling Dissociative Disorder, it's just getting crazier and crazier. Resources are stretched further. We talk about things like getting them to treatment. There's no treatment. You know, we don't have these services for the masses of people that need them. So there's the one issue of containing and managing the problem, and the other issue of preventing the problem from occurring. That's where the children come in. And I had this Human Accountability Project years ago, which was a traffic enforcement thing. And the problem is there's nothing that is upholdable. You know, people skirt the law, they get away with things. It's very unfortunate the way people drive. I'm sure we've been on the road and wish that there was someone that could do something about that crazy fool that puts your family at risk driving by you. And these things wear on you. So this traffic enforcement system that would have created jobs as an economic engine to get India and China and all these places that need a traffic control system puts a fair and consistent thing in place. Because it's not fair, it's not consistent. And that's what turns people off. So kids need to have this knowledge that there is something that's fair that they can hold on to. And so without that, it's just going to get crazier and crazier, and I feel for where we're at. I want our community to prosper. There are extraordinary means that are required that the current setup just doesn't really allow for. So I feel you. You know, this is a tough one, and there's only personal responsibility in the end. And so people that want to quit, there should be something for them. But most people are just lost and confused, and there's nothing to hold on to in life. So that's the real problem. And I'm going to follow what you do because I'm very interested. And let's keep our spirits up, because this is a tough problem, and we're going to have a lot of defeats. There have been a lot of defeats. We went through this with the city 15 years ago, people stealing the wire from the electric company in the houses. 30 years ago, people were pulling the copper out of Chicago buildings that I was around to get money. None of these things are different. Just what we do about it has to be different. So God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jessica Dennis Lay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jessica Dennisley, and I'm a health educator at Tarzana Treatment Centers. I'm also a representative of Antelope Valley Marijuana, Alcohol, and Pharmaceutical Prevention Coalition, or we call it AVMAP. I'm here tonight to share information and data regarding drug use specific to the Antelope Valley. At Tarzana Treatment Centers, we work to prevent youth access and availability of alcohol, marijuana, prescription drugs, and methamphetamines. We do this through policy change, research, and community-level education. Currently, we have directed our focus to methamphetamines and the effect this drug is having on our community. Through research, data collection, and focus groups, we have found that the prevalence of meth in the Antelope Valley has led to social acceptance of drug use among our youth. Due to these findings, Tarzana Treatment Centers has begun to conduct a methamphetamines needs assessment. We are continuously collecting public opinion surveys and conducting literary reviews. The next step is to organize focus groups within the community to gain better perspective and understanding of the problem. Participants could include community members, those in recovery from addiction, those who suffer from an addiction, community workers, government officials, law enforcement, and health professionals. If you or someone you know from your organization would be interested in participating, please contact us. We are able to conduct these focus groups in Spanish and English, and we'll come to you. At the completion of the needs assessment, we plan to determine the extent to which methamphetamine is a public health risk. We plan to identify ways in which such a health risk might be mitigated. Using our results, we will make recommendations for a strategy to combat methamphetamine availability and abuse within the Antelope Valley. Tarzana Treatment Centers and AV MAP appreciate your concern and help with addressing this problem. We are always looking for ways to collaborate and work with our government and schools, also our law enforcement agencies. We will support any preventative and educational measures which this commission chooses to pursue, and which the city and sheriff's department choose to enforce. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Well, we're going to be contacting you.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much.
I'll email you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Nicole? Hello.
There's probably the next 20 or 10 years. Thank you for welcoming me. I don't believe anyone wants to pay for what business as usual. And so we're talking about something new here in infrastructure that you wanted. There was some type of infrastructure, Mr. Derberry, that you had that detoured you. So there's this thing that's ATF nannies. The president, he wanted something to do about something like that, but the nannies, well, assault weapons, it's just an assault. When someone wants to assault somebody, then there's a problem. That's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Yeah.
Anyone have any commissioner comments?
Look forward to the next one.
Well, this is completely off topic and totally a selfish plug. At the Almond Blossom Festival on Saturday from 6 to 9, my band's going to be playing on the main stage. So if you want to come see me play the drums, I'll be there.
When is that?
The Almond Blossom Festival on Saturday in Quartz Hill at George Lane Park on L8 and 55th. It's the Quartz Hill Chamber of Commerce puts that on every year. So 6 to 9, we're closing out the event. So
May I make an announcement?
it's a rain or shine deal. So it should be interesting. It might be cold, so
Bundle up.
bundle up. But we will be entertaining.
May I hone in on that? We are celebrating my father's 85th birthday. Wow. Bishop Hearns is turning 85, and we are having a luncheon on April 21st from 12 noon to 3. And if you're interested, it's a ticketed item. Just call me, and I'll hook you up.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Well, we have tabled our next meeting till the first Tuesday of May at 5 o'clock. If we don't have any more comments, it is 5:19, and we are adjourned.